Because you give a small mwanya in Kiswahili, or that small void, then you're in a whole big problem with the entire loan management. Because the profile keeps on expanding into interests and other defaults that might then come, that then become very difficult to secure.
Yeah. I really don't know whether the administrator gets the seriousness of this thing.
Yes.
You know, putting public funds at risk, I think it can put you in a very awkward situation finally, as a person, you know, because definitely public funds must be accounted for, and there must be a way. So take this seriously, because you don't seem to see the seriousness of this.
Yeah, my presumption was that I was taking the governor's word that he tried to fire a few people who are mismanaging these funds. And that's why I was putting the responsibility on the governor to probably restructure the entire staffing of this fund. This is a risk fund. It's a very risky fund if it's poorly managed, because loans couple a lot of resources. You know, you talk about 6 people, 30 million. Before you realize another 10 people, you're talking 100+ million. So the governor must take keen interest on this, and if there is a possibility to restructure the entire architecture of leadership there or staffing there, then do so. That is to the best of your ability, if you can be able to assess the capability of the people who are managing this fund. Because there's a very thin balance between the fund being managed administratively and then the disbursement point becomes the bank. If you cannot reconcile the two, you'll be in a lot of problems with this fund.
But Chair, is
Yes.
firing the solution? Will that secure the public funds? Will we get the public funds back? That's, I think, the bottom line is to be able to secure these funds.
Mr. Chairman,
Even what is already at risk.
Yes, Governor?
we are discussing the risk. We've not lost the funds yet. So the issue of recovering lost funds does not arise. Yeah. But as I'm saying, in the next 60 days, we are going to get collateral for these loans to ensure that if an also is fired or something happens to them, we can still be able to recover our money through collateral. It was a serious omission, that one I've really admitted. Because like we're giving unsecured loans to officers. But the bank of course operates from a point of safety because they don't have our money. That money for the fund. So really the fund is secured. But for us, people who develop this fund, we must secure funds. And that's why we are promised that within the next 60 days, we're going to show that all these funds are fully covered.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want us to belabor much, but...
Yeah, but within what timelines do we consider public funds now, from the time they've been taken, and the time we can consider they're lost?
Okay.
What's the time span?
The repayment period is known. I think it was tied to the contracts, which is actually within the tenure of the governor. Yeah, apart from the other, of course, public officials that benefit, and then we can have a different arrangement for them. But for people who are appointed by the governor, the CECs, their tenure is tied to the governor, so their loan repayment must be within.
I wanted to make a general comment on this whole issue, Chair. You know, it's because this is the first time we're interacting with this kind of funds in the counties. And Chair, I am not jumping over the gun, but I can tell you the situation will be worse when other counties come before us. Yeah. Because I have had personal interaction with a number of counties over this, especially the mortgage and car loan funds. And the reason why, and I don't blame the governor, or I wouldn't blame the fund manager, attract serious talents to come work for you. Somebody who quits his job as a KRA officer or a KRA regional manager to come and work for you as a chief officer in Kitale, he needs to have a sweetheart deal. And this is part of the sweetheart deal that counties have always coined for this kind of stuff. So you have access to, first of all, these monies are county monies, taken to the bank for administration, and you have quick access to that money. So then you end up having a chance and a condition to relax the requirements so that that particular staff can actually access this loan quickly. So that's why you see either there are no loan application forms, they just say there will be minutes at a committee, the committee sat. So Chair, this should not really worry us. This is something we really expect on a much more bigger scale, and advise the committee. We just give a direction that they go and rectify. But this is very normal, by the way. I don't blame the governor.
Senator, order. It is not normal. Don't normalize it. I agree with everything that you say, but it's not normal, because even as members of parliament, we get loans in this parliament. The issue that has been raised here is substantial issue, procedure. And Governor, I want to take note of this, because that is the most critical issue, is the issue of procedure of how these loans are given out. And those procedure, the people you have put in charge of this fund are not figuring them out. They are well spelled in your own laws. There is a county law that defines, there's an act of the county assembly of Tanzania that stipulates how this how this mortgage loan, current loan mortgage should be able to be disbursed. What the concern is, your administrators are not following that. So when you're leaving this committee today, there are two issues. One is the issue that all senators have raised here, which is secure the loans that are not secured. That one is very clear. But what Senator Tobiko is saying cannot be understated is that after securing them, what happens? What happens is that going forward, the fund must be administered properly. And that administration is what is in question, because that's what has gotten us following the put making sure that your officers are either up to the task or attracts a lot of resources. You alone have indicated that you know, in the bank alone, that's what Senator Tobiko is stressing on, and I don't want to understate it. That the securing is fine. 2024, I mean. Now, Governor, this was the report that had the highest number of inaccuracies, the highest number of accounting issues that we talked about, we canvassed before. And I hope that the accounting officer will take note and perhaps will give feedback based on what we had given. I won't go into those details, and I think that the Senate has decided also that we won't go into the accounting details. Whatever bad ivy position we had is what will surface in this. But if you look at both page 1 of our notes and all the way, those were the biggest problems, the accounting issues, accounting errors, inaccuracies in the statement of comparison of budget and actuals. I mean, this is something that you must look at, Governor, very seriously. But for the purposes of this meeting, I think let us look at just 2 queries so that we can be able to conclude. One I'll just want your comment on, and then we'll give you a written response, and then one we can delve on. So let's look at failure to prepare operational budget. May you read that query? And again, it's under report on lawfulness and effectiveness in the use of resources. Failure to prepare operational budget. Auditor? The query.
Thank you, Chair. Failure to prepare operational budget. The statement of comparison of budget and actual amounts reflects final income budget amount of Kenya shillings 125 million, which was not supported with an approved operational budget. This was contrary to Section 14, subsection 1 of the Trans Nzoia Elimu Bursary Fund Account Act 2014, which requires that at least 3 months before the commencement of each financial year, the board shall cause to be prepared estimates of the revenue and expenditure of the fund for that year, and the board shall lay the proposed estimates before the executive committee member for education for review and approval. In the circumstances, management was in breach of the law. Thank you, Chair.
Governor, your response?
And we have just a one-line response there. That the approved and reimbursed fund operational budget is available for audit review.
Is now available?
Yes.
Is now available?
That's the import of the response.
Auditor?
Thank you, Chair. I think we noted that. We also saw the attachment. However, we note that there is no evidence of approval of the estimates by the CEC responsible. However, in normal circumstances, they should have come while we were in the field. While the audit was ongoing, it should not even have found its place in this report. Thank you, Chair.
So are you suggesting that this can only be confirmed in the next audit cycle? This is one of those issues, right?
This is one of those that will be lost because if a signature appears maybe on the original document, then we might say it was available, or it's available. It's now available, as the governor has said. But in future, probably let's have the budgets and all the accompanying.
Yeah. In other words, and I want senators perhaps comment on this one or two, but in other words, these are case of late submission of documents, which then certificate has been raised, Governor. You cannot re-audit. You cannot reopen the certificate. It has been closed. There was no submission of this document at the time that it was needed. So we take it in our recommendation. Well, I think that senators can comment on this, but we've commented on this a number and a number. We will take in our recommendation that we want to be lenient on late submission of documents. Section 62 of the Public Audit Act will apply, especially for this fund next time those documents are not given. Senators, is that okay to go with? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just to add, you know, some of these things, you know, we come here to respond to them. But ordinarily, how would the governor know that this gets about operation budget?
I think
in the course of my work as a governor, particularly with the strategic direction of a county government, how would I ordinarily know that the Bursary fund does not have an operation budget?
There are two things. Number one, I would help you. The CEC responsible, and that's why I'm telling you that don't worry, we will do the work for you. We'll just hold your officers accountable. Because if you read section 149 that I was referring you to, their JDs there basically, what they're supposed to do. Of course, I'm not trying to excuse you, because as an executive under 179, you must take keen interest in the running of this stuff. In fact, ordinarily, there are almost 7 meetings by the auditor that at least in one of them, you should have a bird's eye position on what the audit queries are going to be. And I would believe that the auditors perhaps invite the executive and the relevant officers So then you'll be able to pick. But the CECs have got serious responsibility in terms of being able to keep you posted on what is going on. So if they're not doing their work, that question, ask them after this when you're with them, perhaps in your cabinet, and then call them to order. Senator Kisang.
What I wanted, what the governor said, I want to find out, you know, as the CEO of the county, I believe you have regular cabinet meetings. And in your cabinet, I believe also your CECs and chief officers, they have performance targets. They sign performance with you. I believe the CEC sign with you, and then maybe CECs sign with the chief officers going down. And one of the things they have to sign is including these funds. You know, basically, so that, you know, the law says, your own law says basically 3 months before the end of the financial year, they should have prepared a budget. So those are the things that, you know, when you're meeting them, have you done this? Have you done this? And then when you are doing appraisals, when they're being appraised, have they done it? So basically, it is them who are letting you down. Chair, as also my final comments was what I picked the 2 things there: late submission of documents and then non-signing. You can even imagine the governor, the CEC in charge of education, should have signed the budget. The budgets have been provided to the auditors, but it's unsigned. So who is the owner of that particular budget? And then finally, Chair, as my final comment is, I wanted to say, so maybe also for the executive, especially the governors, if you sign a 2.5 year or 2 years contract with your CECs and also maybe chief officers, because this is an executive car loan and scheme mortgage, when you give them a loan, you also give them so that the repayment period is within the contract time. Because for us, we have a 5-year, it's less than 5-year contract with the Parliamentary Service Commission. They ensure by end of June, again it's end of June before August of the election year, the loan should have been fully paid. So even for you, if you give them 2 years or 2.5 year contract, you give them a loan that is equivalent within that, the months within that particular period. If it is renewed, then they can get additional loan so that, you know, the default rate is reduced.
Thank you. Thank you. I think from what Senator Kisang has said, our expectation would be also that you try your appraisals to the audit reports, because in fact it's the best performance indicator to draw your KPIs with your teams. Because if you don't write to the audit report that you're seeing here, then you know, in some organizations that have got good budget, there is even internal audit processes that then inform external auditors' processes, so that you're not caught into this kind of purely accounting messes. Because this is one of those accounting messes where people just don't show up with the document that they are supposed to do, and then they don't do their work, and it makes you actually look very bad as an executive. So those feedback, I think you can take them. Perhaps, I know Senator Chimera wants to say something, but do you mind holding it a little bit so that you just read the query on board and then you tie it up? I'll give you the first priority. The query on board.
Yeah, maybe before you proceed, maybe just off the cuff.
Yes. Go ahead, Governor.
You know, so some of these things appear as if now the government is supposed to go and do very, you know. And we have got 2 levels of government. And like, how can the president know what some officer in a given department, like the Department of Education, is doing? Because these 2 levels of government are almost structured in a similar manner. We've got ministers, we've got CECs, we've got PSs, we've got chief officers. Yeah. But every time a governor comes here, of course, we are moving responsibility from the concerned officers. Some can go and do their own things, knowing that at the end of the day, it's the governor coming to sit here. And many of these things, by the way, unless the auditor flags them out, like if he didn't flag out this issue of lack of a budget, I wouldn't know. Ordinarily, I wouldn't know. So devolution is work in progress.
I don't mean to stop you, because you are live on camera. I want to caution you not to take that path. Because, you know, in our constitution, only county governments are given a corporate entity identity. They are corporate bodies. In fact, governors are the only people referred to as chief executive officers under 179. So because of that, it behooves you as the governor to actually be well conversant with everything that's happening in the county. In fact, details to who was the sweeper today in the streets, if you're running in the compound of where you are, because that's what a CEO does. But what I was telling you, the recourse for you, which I was inviting you to go and read, and then call the Riot Act to your teams, is Section 149 of the PFM Act. If you read 149, Section 149(2), it says an accounting officer is mandated to submit estimates on an entity to the county executive committee member, which is the CEC I was talking about, responsible for that entity, who then, after approving it, shall forward it to the CEC Finance. So the law has given you management of that entire accounting officers for you. That's the constitution and the laws. Is the accounting officers are the people you must put in check. But I don't want to belabor, because you and the president, you have got a tougher job as a CEO. The president is not a CEO. The president can have this excuse for mischief, but you cannot have the excuse for mischief, unfortunately, by law. But that said,
as custodians and protectors of devolution, I think it's good for us to give you feedback.
Yes.
Because every time we raise this issue, as we have said, you are CEOs, and
yes,
you must come here.
Yes.
But I think the Senate is the custodian, the protector of devolution. Sometime maybe in your free time you can look at how we can improve some of these things. I think I'm just giving, that's why it's off the cuff.
Yeah.
It's just feedback.
That's true. I take that seriously. But you're the CEO still. We can't change the constitution unless
maybe.
So the last thing, senators are going to come in. The last thing we're going to consider today for maybe perhaps 5 or 6 minutes is the ineffectiveness of the board. Just with that query, and then I'll give Senator Chimera and Senator Mbungo perhaps to comment on those, and then the governor.
Thank you, Chair. Ineffectiveness of the board. Examination of board minutes indicated that the management had only met once on 24th February 2024. This was contrary to Section 9, subsection 1 of the Trans-Nzoia Elimu Bursary Fund Account Act 2014, which provides that the board shall meet not less than 6 and not more than 20 times in a financial year, and not more than 2 months shall elapse between the date of one meeting and the date of the next meeting. In the circumstances, the effectiveness of the board in the management of the fund could not be confirmed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Governor.
Mr. Chairman, let me read the response as it is. The management acknowledges the oversight and omissions and has taken administrative action. The requirement to have 6 bursary board meetings, however, the Elimu Bursary Fund Act only allows a maximum of 0.5% and 2.5% for board allowances, and the ward bursary committees allowances respectively, inclusive of the 25 ward bursary committee members and the 7 bursary board members. The budget is therefore insufficient to facilitate the stipulated number of meetings.
Auditor?
Thank you, Chair. I think on admission is that there's an oversight and some omission, because as you know, the bursary is a process. A student is in this class, moved to the next form and all that. So there needs to be monitoring of the same. So, and I know there is a national debate on bursaries, but on this one we note about the shortfall in the budgets, but it can be probably enhanced to ensure that there is proper oversight on the bursaries that are being issued by the county government. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Senators, Senator Chimera.
Chair, I wanted to pick the governor's mind on this whole issue of bursaries. I understand there was a circular from the COB that basically outlawed the issuance of bursaries by county governments. How is the county government of Trans Nzoia treating that particular circular? There's actually a court case on the same. I don't know whether is it a position you have on COG? Have you joined the court case? Are you still issuing bursaries or not? Otherwise, this gentleman might not have a job this time round to do in terms of auditing this particular fund. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Mbugua, 1 minute.
No, Chair, allow mine to pass because of time.
I was giving you 1 minute, but it's okay. Senator Tobiko? Governor, your response to Senator Chimera?
Mr. Chairman, the control of budget is of the firm view that bursaries to second schools, tertiary schools and universities is a national government function, and she actually did a circular to that effect to all county governments. We had a meeting, DIBEC meeting, where all these parties attended under the chairmanship of the deputy president, and it was agreed that she rescinds the circular. It was basically under duress. She was not very comfortable. And she did that. She did the letter withdrawing the circular. But somebody else picked that circular and went to court and said she issued the correct circular, and therefore she has got no mandate to withdraw it. And the court agreed with her. Actually, we were only allowed to issue bursaries for this financial that has lapsed. Going forward, we are supposed to have IPS, intergovernmental position agreements. But again, the matter is still in court. Some of us are fearing that actually the final verdict will be that counties just keep away from issuance of bursaries. The biggest issue now is as we exit the issuance of bursaries, who is going to fill that hole? The assumption by the national government is that, for me, if I've been giving out 1.5 million shillings in bursaries, outside of that month, the national government, it's not going to happen. I'll just put that amount to a different function in the county. So that loophole will still remain. In Trans Nzoia, we don't even look at this as a bursary. We use the word bursary, but basically it's just some kind of social intervention. Because basically what we are doing is we are paying food, because the government gives capitation of 22,000, but in that capitation there's no provision for lunch. So we come in and pay that at 10,000 per child. People may choose to call it bursary, but in the absence of that, even the 22,000 capitation will go to waste because this child will be sent home because they have not paid 5,000 shillings. So for me, instead of us fighting over these tough wars, we're supposed to be doing what? This was a very, very important thing to be politicized. And if the national government insists that we do not participate in the issues of bursaries, we just budget this money for other things. But the consequence would be that many, many deserving children, very deserving, bright children from poor families, will not have basic education.
I hear you, Governor.
Chair, this is the only governor who has no qualms with letting bursaries go. The rest would say it is our money, we must have bursaries for politics, of course. Thank you, Governor.
It seems that Chimera is gearing to be governor of Kwale, which would be a good it's a good progress for the Senate. But Governor, I think that is a complex. For me, I never look at things from black and white. You know, if the answer is always somewhere in the middle, because the complexity of these issues are tough. On one hand, it is true that the counties are underfunded. In fact, we argue in finance and budget, where I see it, that the counties are defunded by these aspects, because you already get very small amount of money, which we struggle to fight for here. Senators have fought so much so that the budget that's given to counties go higher. Now we're at 415 billion. Hopefully it stays at that. But there are functions that are cross-sectional. to the extent that counties have to foot the bill, national government have to foot the bill. So for instance, water issues. You will find that the national government is using your water, right, in some areas, and then they don't want to pay. That's defunding you. And then, on the other hand, you consume a national government service, something like electricity, and then you're forced to pay. That's defunding you. So the reason why senators are incongruous sometimes with the voices that say you should not be able to finance non-county functions is because it constricts that fiscal space for the counties to do other things. The ECDs are just struggling as much as funding the higher education is concerned. So that is valid. But on the other hand, you go to some counties, you empathize, right? So we visited Mandera the other day as senators. We went there to visit the county of Mandera and just see how devolution is performing there. And you find that before 2013, there was no any semblance of national government or any form of police service. There was no education services. So when you're a county of Mandera and you find a governor, you find yourself as a governor of Mandera with an issue of Al-Shabaab on one hand, and there's no policing system, and they have to put 300 police reserve officers, national police reserve officers, in their payroll. Will you come here and say that the national security is a function of counties? Mandera should not do it. Mandera had no any college, zero. And the county government had to come in place and build a college.
remember some of them, we pay money for them to go for training, but somehow they don't go. This is not a matter that's routinely brought the attention of the government. We start asking now if an officer in good standing, and they said, "Are in good standing? What is the reason?" And then there's a bit of family. Then there's a problem. But we are addressing this issue.
Senators?
Thank you, Chair. Maybe mine is to the OAG. These issues, number 1 and 2, you've indicated they are partially addressed. Maybe my question to you, what challenges are you facing? Because these issues, you could have resolved them at the audit cycle. Then you bring substantive matters to this committee. What's the challenge of you maybe resolving some of these minor issues?
Thank you, Honorable Senator. In fact, the word from the Auditor General is that all accounting matters in future, she wouldn't want them to be subject for discussion by committee. It should be on substantive matters. But the audit procedures and the audit standards first start with the accounting statements. You see, the financial statements must present a true and fair view so that any Wajiku, Nafula, reading those statements, they should represent the true and accurate position. So no matter how far we want to run away from bringing those matters to your attention, the auditing standards require that if they are not resolved at the client or with the client during the audit cycle, then they have to appear. But we are trying our best to work with our clients, and I like the commitment by the Honorable Governor, His Excellency, that these matters will be in future resolved. They will enhance capacity so that we are able to resolve them at the ground. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Chimera?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, having listened to Governor's remarks, I just want to take this chance, Governor, and appeal to you, or perhaps challenge you to really build capacity with the people who are in charge of doing these statements. We are almost headed to a very politically charged environment in the next subsequent months to come. When you have certain issues being picked by the Auditor General, especially on matters in Kwale County. There are many accountants who are qualified in Kwale County. We would be happy to donate them to you. I don't understand why Tanzania, and you know it's also my second home. I am shocked that there's no capacity in Tanzania, come on. So I hope as you go back home, you will really concentrate on building capacity so that these issues don't get to the floor of this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Kisan?
Chair, you know, already members, you know, this is something that we noted earlier, that it's a capacity issue within this, you know, these are funds may be created and they are recent ones. And the governor said maybe they're getting support from the executive. So it is good that you also build, as you've said, you have committed that you'll build capacity for them. They go for training. And you've said some of them, you pay for training, but they don't go. So you give them some target performance so that if now that you are fired for CECs, you can also fire those who are not going for training and not performing. Yeah, so that, you know, these things should not come. At least, you know, we've noted in all the 4 reports so that this it should not arise. When we see you next time on the same, we'll not see the same 2024, 25. And then it's also important that, you know, you, when the auditors are around doing the audit, you attend both maybe entry and exit so that if there are issues that you can resolve them before the certificate is issued. So I believe, Chair, these are straightforward. We should not belabor on the same.
Okay, very well. I think my comments will be 2.
we respond, Chair, I just plus where I don't have qualified accountants. You know, I can be roasted with qualified accountants, but we're trying to operate within the wage bill. But as I've said, we're going to stretch it a bit. We are not about that 5.7. We're going to put around 40% so that we have enough capacity.
Competent. I think he meant competent. The issue here is an issue of competence, and that's my first comment, is that and perhaps you should communicate to your accounting officers, not just in the traditional sense of being an accountant, but accounting officer in terms of fiduciary responsibility. If you look under Section 149 of the PFM Act, it's very clear on these accounting officers and their roles. Then if you look under, not article, but Section 149 of the PFM Act, and then you also look at the Section 199, all the way to Section 200 of the PFM Act, issues such as lack of proper record keeping, these accounting errors are actually put as serious violations of the accounting standards. And, our legal team perhaps could read for you, but I'll save you that. But just note those parts of the law. They are actually punishable by law. So there is no, unfortunately, in law, there is no small or big accounting error. All of them are considered the same. To the extent that it will be important that you tell your accounting officers to make sure that they live up to the standards. And you have talked about taking them for further training, and if people are not going through those trainings, we'll have a problem, including things like ISPAC membership and renewals. We look into those. We won't go into those today, but I think they should know that there are very serious issues for which you can be able to actually take action and sanction them accordingly. I think Mark Gasanja has got something to say.
Yeah, maybe Chair, just on your mentioning the law, I just want to mention the Section 62 of the Public Audit Act on late submission or failure to submit documents to the auditor. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think that's also very critical, Governor, that your accounting officers pay attention to Section 62 of the Public Audit Act for late submission of documents or not submitting documents at all for one reason or another, because that's also punishable. And this committee has made a decision, a radical decision, that we will be punishing officers who violate those pieces of the law. Then the last thing is just that there are a number of them. You'll go through them with the auditor. There are a number of issues here that are not addressed on those particular audit queries, and then there's those that are partially addressed. I wanted to request that you harmonize this with the auditor in the next 14 days, so that the issue that will be resolved in the next financial year as a matter of accounting, auditor take note, so that they are solved as such. But for those that needs appropriate documentations, so that we can solve them now, rather address them now, because solving will do the resolution in our reports, but make sure that in the next 14 days you harmonize all those areas with the auditor, the issue that are lying unaddressed in those particular audit queries. So with that, in the climate change fund for the year ended 30th June 2024, I want us just to look at one audit query substantially, and that will be the audit query on failure to allocate funds to the wards. That is under reports on lawfulness and effectiveness in the use of resources. Auditor, do you want to read for us that query?
Thank you, Chair. The issue on failure to allocate funds to the wards. Audit review revealed that there was no evidence that the fund administrator developed, published, and circulated information on the disbursements of funds available to each ward. Further, there was no evidence that there were any disbursements of the funds to the wards, contrary to Section 20 of the Trans-Nzoia County Climate Change Fund Act 2021, which requires that the fund administrator shall develop, publish, and circulate information on the disbursements of funds available to each ward, which shall be approved by the County Planning Committee, and disbursement of funds shall be based on cash flow projections submitted by implementers of the activities financed by the fund. In the circumstances, management was in breach of the law. Thank you, Chair.
Governor, response?
Our management response, Chair, is as follows. There was adequate planning of disbursement of the wards as per the approved work plan for the financial year 2023-2024. However, this was not realized due to late disbursement of funds from donors. We have Appendix 12 is attached, the approved work plan for the said financial year 2023-2024. Appendix 13, the funds allocation criteria. Appendix number is that 14, Ward Climate Change Planning Committee meeting attendance register. Appendix 15, report on dissemination of funds disbursement towards. Appendix 16, Ward Climate Change Planning Committee minutes for the meetings held. And lastly, Appendix 17, local fund disbursement schedules. So the main issue here, Mr. Chairman, is that we're not able to disburse the funds because the funds were not there. They have not been received.
Auditor, what is your take on that response?
Chair, the management has not been able to show evidence of the disbursements to the ward during the year 2023-2024.
But what do you need as the auditor to be able to address this? What kind of documentation would satisfy this, given the the act from the assembly,
Chair,
from the county?
What we intend to do is review the 2024-2025 allocations to the wards, because for the year 2023-2024, the disbursements were done late in June 2024 and in July 2025. So the activities of the fund were carried out during the current financial year. Yes.
So you want to see whether the management disbursed funds within 2024-2025.
Yeah.
That's well put. Governor, are you getting the concern here? The auditor? Yes, because you've indicated that there was late disbursement in the previous year.
The one that we're talking about 23-24.
Yes.
But we since received the funds actually after the financial year, and I think we've disbursed the funds for 2024-2025. Now the year is under audit.
Auditor?
Thank you, Chair. That is the correct position. We are currently reviewing the audit of 2024-2025. So the auditors are on the ground. So they will be reviewing what the activities of the fund for the 2024-2025. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, but so because Governor is under oath, perhaps I'll let the senators interrogate whether there's actually evidential, indication that these funds have been, because we take this issue of the wards very seriously. Senator Chimera, I see you have got something to say.
Thank you, Chair. I just I take with a lot of concern the verdict from the AG's office. And the words is that there was no evidence that there were any disbursements of these funds to the wards. Is that still your position as you sit now, or this evidence was finally availed to you and you're satisfied that these funds, whether they came late, actually reached the intended persons or the intended votes?
And maybe to add on what Senator Chimera has said, actually the auditor used two very also said the
funds were dispersed late, some in June and then some in July. I wanted to find out then from the OAG is what happens in this case, that the funds have arrived late and they are not able to disperse to the ward. In the next financial year, which is the last financial year, the daily vote, the daily budget, so that basically it means nothing was spent in this prior year, and they have rebudgeted to spend on the last financial year that ended in June. So I just wanted to understand so that we know that it means 0% on the budget was spent, and then now we are spending the total budget on this last financial year. So that, you know, these are similar issues. If the county executive is in breach of the law and they didn't receive the funds, what happens?
And Chair, if the county government received money is late and there's no actual spending by way of disbursing the same to the ward funds, then you see you cannot say there's no evidence that this money was not disbursed, because these words, no evidence and expenditure, is what is riling up the committee auditors. So please explain to us clearly so that we know who is at fault here. We're not saying it is you, but then again, if funds come in late, how do we treat these funds? Does the governor have to just send to the ward funds because the law complies and asks him to send the money to the ward funds? Or the governor can wait and realize evidence to spend this money?
Auditor, it's just about just clarity. I think so you can help just the members to understand a little bit more.
Mr. Chairman, before the auditor comes in,
just wait, because we want to make sure that there is harmony between the auditor and the members, just in terms of understanding.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, we have received the information that the funds were actually disbursed in the current financial year 2024-2025. And as we go to the ground, we shall use this list and also check on the activities that were, if it is, they are climate change related. So if it was tree planting, our officers will be going and checking whether there are trees which were planted, or tree nurseries, or if, I don't know, what other activities are involved in the Flocker Fund. So that's one thing. The other issue is that as at the point of the audit, the county had 373, was it 371 million? They had received 371 million, which they had not disbursed. And what was remaining was their portion. It's called co-funding. So, yes, they had received money from World Bank, but they had not fully funded their portion. That is the fact. So we say yes, there was a breach in the law. However, it is correctable. We will be checking in the current year whether those activities that should have been undertaken then, together with the activities for this year. So we shall be checking 2-year activities to see whether they have been able to undertake those activities. Thank you, Chair.
Governor, perhaps for the comfort of the committee, could you share with us what was the anticipated amount from the financing partner that delayed, and then to the comfort of the committee, what was the responsibility on the county executive of from your side to the same fund, so that we understand just the entire amount that was involved, and whether now that amount has all been disbursed in this current financial year. What is the rough estimate that each ward was supposed to get? Then the last question would be, what is in this financial year, is there the same anticipation of the same funds, or is there a different amount that is anticipated from the same donor? And your executive's contribution, what is it in? Because they is saying that they're going to be looking at the two activities. So just get us into those details on the funds that were anticipated, what each one were expecting, and which one delayed, I mean, to the extent that if your contribution did not delay, I think the 371 million that Auditor is referring to was a contribution from the county government. Is it, Auditor? Is that true, Auditor?
Oh, that was from the donor.
From the donor?
Yeah.
And that one was already received by the time of audit?
Yes.
Yeah, so was that to the other, to all the wards?
The issue here is that we had budgeted for these funds, and therefore prepared the work schedule for these funds. That's what the auditors saw when they came for audit. The problem is that we did not have the money. Where the money was coming from the donor. We received the money after the closure of the financial year. Actually, after 31st of November, of May.
How much was the money?
You cannot make any. Are they supposed to be told that 4 million? How much? Donor. So 34 million from the World Bank. 113. So, Chairman, if you look at our report on page 39, all the way to 39. Sorry. From page 115 all the way to the last page, it shows the disbursements. As per that schedule we developed, we are waiting for the funds. The funds have since been disbursed. So it means for the auditors now to come and confirm, they are on the ground to confirm that indeed these funds have been disbursed. But we have a record here on how we disbursed funds when we received them.
I think that's very straightforward, because even if we belabor on this, the only time we can be able to fully confirm this is in the next audit cycle.
Yes.
I think that's how this happens, right? So we will keep it under review, and then in the next audit cycle, please, clerk, take note that this would be a substantive query that will be able to harmonize with what the governor has given today. So in that case, we proceed to the next fund. I wanted to check on the Nawiri fund. Yeah, so the Nawiri fund, auditor, I think because we had canvassed around the issues of unsupported depreciation and amortization expenses, inaccuracies, basically all the accounting issues we had canvassed on. So, Governor, on this particular report, what will be our query? Number one would be again on report on lawfulness and effectiveness in the use of resources. And on this, we will look into query number one on that, which is lack of an insurance policy for the loans disbursed. And then we will also look at the query on unapproved internal borrowing. the special address, but we just comment on that. I just want your comment on that, Governor. We won't read that particular one. And then we will look into long outstanding unaccounted interest. Yeah, I think then the last one, we will look at long outstanding receivables from exchange transactions. Is that okay, members?
Yes.
So let's start with lack of an insurance policy for the loans that were disbursed in this fund. Auditor, take it on. That will be the query. If you look under report on lawfulness and effectiveness in the use of resources, it's the first query under that. Auditor.
A lack of an insurance policy for the loans disbursed. The statement of financial position reflects current portion of long-term receivables from exchange transactions balance of Kenya shillings 52,789,305. The balance includes an amount of Kenya shillings 49,224,184 relating to loans disbursed on 17th May 2024. However, management did not secure an insurance policy for the loans. This was contrary to Section 10, subsection 1 of the Trans Nzoia County Nawiri Fund Account 2015, which states that the board shall have all the powers necessary for the functions and proper performance of its functions under this Act, and subsection 2H further states that without prejudice to the generality of the provisions of subsection 1, the board shall have authority to take out insurance cover for risky loans such as death, incapacity, or inability to pay, as the board deems fit. In the circumstances, management was in breach of the law. Thank you, Chair.
Could I request, because I'm trying to make sure that we are using our time efficiently, could I request that you further read the long outstanding receivables from exchange transactions? Because when I read that query, I realized that actually they are related. They are actually related with this particular query. So then Governor will respond to two of them together.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Long outstanding receivables from exchange transactions. The statement of financial position reflects portion of long-term receivables from exchange transactions balance of Kenya shillings 3,984,646 as disclosed in Note 7 to the financial statements. The balance includes an amount of Kenya shillings 160,000 disbursed between 2016 and 2018 to 3 youth and women groups in the county. However, more than 6 years after the loans were disbursed, the groups have not repaid any amounts towards principal and interest. The management has not provided measures it has put in place to recover the outstanding loans. In the circumstances, the effectiveness of the controls and management of the recovery of disbursed loans could not be confirmed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Governor, your responses to those two queries?
Mr. Chairman, you realize that query number 7 is talking about 2016 to 2018, very many years ago before he came into office. We've learned our lessons, and that's why we've really improved the management of...
Governor, I wanted you to read the responses
So I read the first one.
Yeah, the first one, then the second one, then you can be free to make a comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on lack of insurance policy, the management response is as follows, Mr. Chairman. For the reference period, the Trans Nzoia County Nawiri Fund Board did not consider loans issued out through Nawiri Fund as risky, and therefore resolved not to insure. Following the prior year's experiences, Nawiri program was redesigned to mitigate the inherent risk of default by loanees through the adoption of a loaning strategy that is tied to LPO/LSO financing, which is linked by the bank and IFMIS system to facilitate automatic recovery of loan amounts. However, the board, to conform with the law, the board intends to ensure that all future loans issued are insured in accordance with the provisions of the Act. We've put an Appendix 3, which is an extract of the minutes of the board discussing the issue of the loan. And of course, Appendix 4, which is a design of the loan agreement form. So, Mr. Chairman, the remarks I wanted to add.
Next, read the next.
The next one.
The next one, then you can make the comments together, because they are very related.
On the long outstanding receivables from the exchequer, from exchange transactions, the management response is as follows. The fund confirms the details of the outstanding receivables in table 1. Number 1, bus park, 8,000. 2, Umak Cottage Industries, 23,500. Romish Electricals, 30,000. Number 4, Simeyu Mabonga Gumbei, 20,000. 5, Violet Nanjala, 40,000. 6, Mary Namweya Wakoli, 5,000. Wilgesta Nekesa, number 7, 5,000. Beatrice Hasandi, number 8, 5,000. Daniel Legosi, number 9, 5,000. Lilian Musheti, number 10, 13,000. And Patrick Wanyonyi, number 11, 5,500. Total, 160,000. There have been attempts to recover these loans, but the count has not been successful. Therefore, we have now embarked on the process of having these debts written off through a process that will culminate in a final approval in the count assembly. We have attached Appendix 11, which are demand letters issued out to defaulters, and Appendix number 12, the request to write off the debts that have been outstanding for too long.
So go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, what we've developed as a strategy in Trans Nzoia is that there is this 30% upfall that has not been working very well because the people who are targeted do not have capital to do business with the county governments. So using Nawiri, we've developed a strategy where groups who qualify under ACUP arrangement, once they're given an LSO, they benefit from this fund, the Nawiri fund. We give them sufficient funds to execute the tender. They are paid through the same account, and we're able to deduct our funds. So there's very little room for default. It's almost foolproof. Actually, for the first financial year, there was no default. We are looking at now the current financial year, see if they're going to be in default. It's almost foolproof. And we're also giving to groups. So if one member of a group dies, like you stated here, those to cover those risks, death, incapacity, inability to pay, we really sorted them out. Previously, of course, we'll give money to individuals, and they'll just disappear. Or we give them to the groups, they default. But when you attempt to recover this money, especially around election time, I will make defaults around 2017. When people are told those who are government funds do not pay, or an open start up and say, if I'm elected governor, I'll ensure that you don't pay. So people did not pay. And that's why we went to this other way. We give you money and we give you a tender. So the chances of default are almost zero. They're very, very minimal.
Auditor, your take on that response?
Thank you, Chair. I find it quite innovative, the issue of LSO, LPO financing, especially for the AGPO. What we shall be doing in the current financial year is to find out of the 48, or is it 49 million issued towards in May last year, our auditors who are on the ground are checking whether there are any defaults, whether there has been 100% recovery, Then if we find defaults, then we might insist on, again, on the issue of insurance being undertaken, which is was already in the policy. So probably then they also need to change the policy to remove the issue of insurance. Thank you, Chair.
Senators, any comment, any take?
Chair.
Rachimera?
Chair, I listened to Governor Natembeya speaking about Nawiri Fund for the second time, I think. The first time I heard him was in another committee, cohesion. And he spoke so passionately about this fund, I actually thought this was your idea. I didn't know you actually found it in office. My question, Governor, is I'm looking at the demand letters that have been done to those people who've been defaulting. They are fairly recent, 18th May 2023, I think all of them bear the same date. But then again, these monies that were advanced to these people happened sometime in 2016. I don't think you are governor then. And I'm concerned that the figures that you are demanding from these people, most of them is 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. I think the highest I've seen is 40,000 shillings. This to me already would be a concern because I'm trying to imagine which LPO or LSO would attract financing of 5,000 or 40,000 shillings. So perhaps, Governor, in your administration now, this is a bit historical. How have you tied the rollout of this loan? Is it that somebody applies and it is specifically tied to that particular tender has been given? Because I can imagine giving someone 5,000 was just as good as giving a token to go and drink busa somewhere in Kitale and not to do a tender. So, Bono, in your current administration, do you give this fund pegged on an actual LPO, an LCO? Are there safeguards? Are you doing a joint escrow account perhaps? Are you paying suppliers directly? So then you recall what is your interest and what the young man who is the tenderpreneur is left with goes to him. We just want to see the safeguards of these funds so that we don't end up writing many demand letters and ordinarily they will never pay because to them this is political financing. They will say this is our money, we are not paying. And there's nothing much you can do to them. Thank you, Chair.
Very well. Any other senator? If none,
what the governor has explained is very innovative. So maybe the OIG, and if this one works, maybe it is something that you can also sell the idea across the Council of Governors, because basically it's like you are giving your constituents a loan to do work, which is basically a soft loan. So if it works, then you can roll it over, because what I know generally, when you give money to groups and youth, even the youth fund and the women enterprise fund, they don't pay generally. It's just like the ASLA fund. So, but if you, it's like an incentive. You are giving them to work, and you give. And this is what the governor told us when we were in Kitale, that he was going to ensure that they get contracts, and then you deduct automatically. So okay. It's a good way of helping your people.
Okay. Any other senator, we proceed? I think we proceed, Governor.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Senator Chimera. When you look at 5,000, 5,000, 10,000, really, it was a joke. Because if the government you give somebody 5,000, they just go to the nearest hotel, eat chicken, and go home. And even the amount of money you'll spend chasing 5,000 will actually be more. And that's why we changed the entire strategy. We're now giving a minimum of 250,000. And it's based on the procurement plan. Every department will have a procurement plan for their 30% ACPO. That's where the money is derived from. This is true empowerment. And indeed, Nawiri was not my innovation. I found it a good idea. And for me, I don't suffer insecurities that you go to a county, your colleagues started a project, and you don't complete it because you think they're going to take political credit for it. If it's a good idea, we just made it better. And I believe it's going to change the lives of our people. The main objective for this, what informed our decision to embrace this, was that you look at people who are doing contracts with county governments. You'll find one individual doing very many jobs with different companies, but just one individual. But you look at our people, they don't know how to do business with the county government. They've got no idea. They think it's a very complicated thing. And that's why we are saying we are going to give this Nawiri funds to groups, not to individuals. And those groups are used as avenues for training, how to do tenders. So you do one, and when they come to the office, they don't just send the chairman or the official, they come. If the group of 20, you all come, and you are taken through the process of procurement. So that the following year, when you have capital, you don't have to come as a group, because you know how you're going to do this work. You understand how to do business with that was the essence, and that was the objective, other than, of course, empowerment.
Okay. Just for the clarity for me, because you know, any meeting that we go through here, we actually do document, and we follow up on everything that we say. If you give recommendations, we will take the recommendations seriously. If we don't give you, we will also take it seriously. In our meeting with you on 30th November 2023, you indicated here that there was a Trans Nzoia Catalyst Youth and Trans Nzoia County Youth and Women Development Fund, if you remember, and you had a very big challenge with that fund. Just for the clarity of this committee, is it the same fund? And what is the status of that one?
The Youth and Women Fund is not operational.
Not operational, or it was dissolved? These are two different things.
It's a process with the chairman.
Because you know there is a winding up process that is duly by law. And because I'm seeing this Nawiri thing, or fund, doing the same thing. Right?
The process of winding up the Youth Women Fund is underway. Because you don't just do things because you are doing, you know, you don't even check that for any impact. And focusing on this act of financing.
What is the status like? Does it still have staffing? Does it still have some budget line? I want to be, because you know when we had this meeting, remember, Governor, I interrogated it personally, and you really were like, this is a troublesome fund, I just want it gone. So I want to deliver a statement, because the way you're expressing on this Nawiri, it seems like it is a replacement, or technically it is an elevated and a well-run fund than the previous one, and they're doing the same thing. So I just want to be sure that in terms of fiduciary responsibility, you are dealing with that fund properly.
Mr. Chairman, from my words when I appear here on the desk, I said you are winding up these funds.